Blast me to Bermuda! It's time for episode 4, part 2 of the Mad Merlin's Warhammer 40,000 Imperium journey. Painting! Hello and welcome back to the Mad Merlin's Warhammer 40,000 Imperium journey. We're at part 2 of episode 4. We're learning how to apply some new paints onto our new models. So we got the Quarkx Destroyer here up to a battle ready standard, except for his weapon. So we're going to do a nice weapon effect for him. And also we have our plasma sight here, which will be used to show you how to get to the battle ready level. So we'll go ahead and do this guy first. So I've already undercoated my model with lead belcher spray, but there's bound to be areas the spray's missed. So our first thing to do is to use lead belcher, which is the new paint we received in this issue. We're going to use this to touch up any areas where the spray's missed. I've already had a look at the model and I can see there's a few. So we got right up underneath here, as well as up underneath and under his belly. So we'll prepare our paint by taking some from the pot and onto our palette. We'll have a touch of water from our water pot to help thin the paint down, let it go on a little bit smoother. And now we'll apply it to our model. So I said we've got all this area up underneath that we've missed. We'll just give this model a nice coat of lead belcher to ensure you've got a 100% coverage. There. With the lead belcher dry, we now have a full coverage. Our next paint will be Quarkx Black. This will be used to paint a few areas on the model. Anywhere that will be a soft black, so the areas we're going to look for are the neck joint, areas that are going to be green in the next step, just so we've got a solid cover. We're going to look at the soft joint here on the proboscis, as well as his tail. And we'll also get the green cable underneath. Once you get that, a couple of layers of that down, we're ready to move on to our next step. There we go, we've got 2 layers of Quarkx Black down. So our next colour will be Caliban Green. One of my old pots was missing its label, but it's definitely Caliban Green. This is a nice dark green that we'll be using to block in some of the armour panels, namely the ones up on his carapace. So we'll get the paint ready in the usual fashion, just a touch of water. And onto our model. So we're going to be painting these areas here. And get the focus to keep on. And don't forget to get the underside. Just be careful around the areas we've already painted with Quarkx Black and metal. And then move on to the next stage. And there's 2 layers of green down. I've also painted his face, as well as the green cables underneath. and a small armor section at the back there. So our next colour is a mix. We will be using the Silicone Grey, which has been mixed with contrast medium as a 2:1 ratio. This will help darken down all the colours we just painted, helping to pick out any details as well with the shading and the recesses, and tie it all together. I'm going to make sure we apply this all over the black, the green and the silver, and the base while we're at it. Once that's done, you can move on to the next section. Okie dokie. Our wash is now near enough fully dried. As you can see, it's picked out a lot of detail, as well as darkened all our colours down nicely. So the next paint we're going to use is Quarkx White. This is going to be base coating all the areas that are going to glow. So we're looking at the energy orb on the inside of his body there. Don't forget his eye. The eye on top of the proboscis there. And of course the energy orbs on these little scarabs, which, as you can see, I've also painted with Caliban green to help them stand out a little bit more. The last area we're going to cover is this giant chunk of masonry, ready for a contrast paint. Just be careful around the metal and the legs and the scarabs. And don't forget to do the other side of the energy orb. With our white applied and dried, we now have two colours left to do to finish our model. First, we're going to use Esseract Glow, which is to apply to any of the areas that are going to be an energy glow. So we got his eye at the front here, the orb on the end of his tail, the scarabs, and of course the energy glows. Brush it clean off for our very last colour. Just goes and holds contrast paint. We're going to apply this just over the bit of masonry on the base to give it a stained stone look. And here we have our Canoptekh plasma sight battle ready once those paints have dried. Now we'll move on to the energy effect. Okay, we're now ready to move on to the weapon effect on our Necron Destroyer. So I've already got 2 layers of Quarkx White down. I'm going to put down a third in a minute, but before we start, the important thing is to think about the direction of the energy flow. So on this particular blade, we're going to focus it towards the bottom here, middle there, and then top round like that. But first, let's get that level layer of Quarkx White down. So this is just to make sure we've got a nice strong base coat of white down before we move on to our next step. Just be careful around where the blade meets the actual haft of the weapon. And make sure you get both sides. We also want to look around the model for any areas that we'll be adding the glow effect to. So we've got these orbs on the hip and on the wrist. And we've also got his eyes. So there. There we go, with our white areas now fully blocked in, we can start to add our energy effect. So the method we're going to use to do this is called a glazing effect. What this requires is to take the paint that we're going to use and thin it down heavily. So our first paint will be Warpstone Glow. We want one nice big brushful on our palette, like that. Give our brush a quick wash. And next, to help dilute it, we don't want to use water because otherwise that will cause the paint to dry a bit rough. Instead, we're going to use this, Lamy Medium, which is basically paint without any pigment. And with it being in a dropper bottle like this, it's easy to apply what we need. So 1, 2, 3 drops ought to be enough. And mix the two together, and we get a nice diluted Warpstone Glow. I think we could do a little bit more Warpstone Glow. There. Let's try it out in a clear place. And yeah, perfect. That'll dry nice and transparent, which is what we're wanting, because we're going to build the effect up over time. So we'll start at the top of the blade here. Like I said, we're going to fight with the focus. No, we're not. Right, we're going to put the energy effect running down the blade to about halfway. So we'll start halfway and then slowly drag the paint up around the top. And in the center, we'll start just at the top here, then work our way down to about halfway there. We'll do flat of the blade there. I think we'll take it down a little bit further. There. Now I need to do this on the same other side in the exact same areas. So I will leave that to dry for a few seconds. Luckily with the thinned down paint, it doesn't take too long to dry. But we are now ready to apply a second layer. This time we're not going to go all the way down like we did with the first. So we're going to start a little further up. So we're going to start about there. And again, drag it all the way to the tip of the blade. And down here we're going to start a little further away from where we started last time and stop there. And the bottom, just going to do about 2/3 of the area there. Now let the second layer dry and we'll continue. I've now done 4 layers of the Warpstone Glow. It's still a little bit wet, but we can get the gist of it, and we can see it starts at a faded green all the way up to a darker green. But that's not the only paint we're going to need to use, because we're going to make sure that the blade energy looks darker towards the source, or further away from the source of the energy, so to say. So we're going to bring in Caliban green. We're going to do the same again. We'll get a big brushful on our palette. And then 3 drops of Lamy Medium. Yep, that's perfect. Make sure we ain't got too much on our brush. So we're going to cover the same areas as before, but this time we're going to cover them a little further back. So at the top of the blade, we're going to start about half the way down. We're just going to put a little thin layer of the Caliban green and to the bottom here, just doing about halfway up. And in the center we're going to focus mainly towards this area here. we'll just leave that to dry. Okay, our first layer is now dried, and you can see it's really helping add to that definition in the dark of the transition. So now we're going to do another layer, this time reducing the area we cover just to the very bottom here. And to the very top here and here. Okay, we're ready to apply our second to last paint, and it's back to Tesseract Glow, like we did for our Canoptekh plasma sight. We're going to put this in the areas we've already base coated white, so the eyes, these orbs on the hips and wrists, and when it comes to the blade, we're going to go from where it's lightest all the way up, covering over the greens and the white, so we get a nice transition. If you apply too much, or like me have made some mistakes, tidy up with your original colour, in this case Caliban green, and then reapply a light layer of Tesseract Glow. Paint in a little bit of Tesseract Glow in these areas where the plasma sight attaches, and injects them with a power boost. There we are. We'll leave that to dry, and we've got one last colour to apply. There we go, with the green now dried. All what's left is to give an edge highlight using white scar to the very edge of the blade, just to show how sharp it is. We use a nice thin brush here. Won't need too much paint. We just need to trace a line from the top all the way around, and down to the bottom. And just like that, our Necron energy weapon is battle ready. And there we have our Quarkx Destroyers and their little plasma sight, battle ready and ready for our next playthrough. So I hope you found this tutorial really helpful. It's a nice easy way to get an energy effect to your Necron weapons, and in later videos I'll show you how to take it to another level. So that's all, and all that's left for me to say is thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. Also, if you'd like to help support the channel, there's an affiliate link as well as a buy me a coffee link in the description down below. And I'll see you next time for more mad content. Goodbye.